we literally have 2 days left. We have today and we have tomorrow. So, just in case if you guys are like, what the heck is this success series? Well, first thing before I even get into that, I'm Monique Johnson, your host, if you don't know who I am. And I'm all about video, especially when it comes to business strategy and growth. And the whole intention about the Success Series is to bring on experts who've been integrating video into their business and or their lives, and how, some of you guys have known I've been doing this for quite a long time, and maybe you're sick of hearing me talk about it. So I said, you know what, let me get some varying opinions and angles and all that great stuff, so that I can serve you all and so that you all can see why I'm so passionate about this and the medium of video that is. And hopefully you all will get the gumption and the confidence to make it happen for you. So we have a very, very special guest, and I know I say this every day, but I feel like every single day it's just a special, special guest. So the reason why this particular guest, this amazing woman, is that I've known her for a very, very long time. I've known her since 11th grade high school. But we really connected and bonded our senior year of high school. Shout out to Miss Jordan AP English class, because we acted a damn fool in that class. But other than that, this Kelechi, which we're going to bring her on in a moment, is very, very near and dear to my heart. She's one of the very few people, because we all know after high school, a lot of times, especially when you leave the state, Kelechi, and shout out to Dr. Tabia Collins-Mitchell, who's on the front lines right now helping us with the pandemic that's going on. Kelechi, and I were like deuces after high school, wanted to get the heck up out of there. And thankfully, Kelechi and I have kept in touch all throughout college and life afterwards. And so I wanted to bring her on. And as I just told her before, like during the pre-interview process, she's the very first person, like in my personal life, that I'm bringing into the forefront. So I was like, girl, no pressure, but also this is so exciting. And in addition, she's been in my wedding. David and I got married last year, October 2019. So I love her to death. She's one of my besties out there. So I know I'm babbling here, but the reason why I have Kelechi on here, and we're gonna have her do her formal introduction and all that, is to really talk about a topic that I feel is very, very important, but also taboo. It was very taboo when Kelechi and I were growing up. I still think is very much taboo in certain cultures and environments and things like that. If you guys are wondering what the heck I'm talking about mental health. And so Kelechi is one of what I find the pioneering women in the millennial demographic, if you will, who is an advocate for mental health. And so without further ado, guys, let's welcome the amazing Kelechi Ubozoh. Welcome, Kelechi.
Thank you so much, Monique. Oh my gosh, what a welcome that was.
So Kelechi, for anyone who don't know who you are, even though I've given you the personal background between you and I's relationship, let people know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. So besides being an official bridesmaid, my name is Kelechi Ubozoh. I am a mental health advocate. I live in Oakland, California. I am the co-editor of this book called We've Been Two Patients, Voice from Radical Mental Health. It came out July of last year from Penguin Random House and our publisher, North Atlantic Books. But I mean, really, I'm someone who has experienced, struggled with mental health, found it really taboo in not just Black communities, but in many communities, and have done over 8 years of work and research in the field of mental health as someone with what we call in California lived experience. So that means that I have the experience of having a mental health issue or a challenge and surviving it. So I'm also part of a film called The S Word. It's a documentary following suicide attempt survivors, which is even more taboo than mental health. So if you want crickets, that's what usually happens when I'm like, yay. We should also talk about all of those things. But really, it's just that this is an important topic, and now people are really really facing it, people who might have been really busy or avoiding things. Well, the experts are calling right now what we're experiencing as a collective traumatic experience, because we're all experiencing a lot. So I'm so excited to be here, talk about some tools and things that are helpful for our mental health and well-being. And yeah, that's who I am.
Thank you so much, guys. And you, as you guys will see, she's an amazing individual and very, very special. And she's doing a lot. She is doing a lot to the point where, you know, like you said, mental health isn't something you really grow up talking about. And honestly, Kelechi, if it wasn't for you, I don't think I would try to familiarize myself with it or pretty much be with those group of people who don't realize the importance. So before we even get started into
Mhm.
like the main part of this, based on your experience, what does mental health mean and why is it so important?
Yeah. And I will just say that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a clinician, and that's totally fine. I'm someone with my own experience. And for me, mental health is health, right? We look at physical health and people really are impressed by it, find like it's important. We got to eat right, we got to do things right. Mental health is also taking care of your emotions, your well being, and what that looks like in your world. It's also very individual, which is why we have a collective of stories from the first line for the people who have first experiences, because I think a lot of people want to understand it. They want to make it really clinical or very much like, oh, it's an illness, it's depression, it's this. But if you have physical health, you have mental health. So if we were to break it down really basic, if you're a human, you have mental health. And where your mental health is at is depending on what you're paying attention to. So if you're not sleeping, if you're not taking care of yourself, if a lot of folks in the Black community have experienced a lot of trauma, but we don't like to talk about like, oh, let's talk about the trauma we've experienced, because so many people have gotten through it or feel like they've gotten through it. They like to push forward. And there's a lot of judgment for folks who are like, let's unpack why some of these things happen to us. Like, and I think it's really important. So your mental health can be impacted by financial, by racism, by oppression. It's not always like this. And for some people, they'll feel like more in touch or feel more aligned with a clinical diagnosis. But for folks who have never seen a clinician, your mental health is still important, right? And you're impacted by all the things in your world. So if you're someone who's never paid attention to your mental health, but you started realizing once you had to be in your home and started old feelings started coming up, you needed to eat more, you needed to maybe drink more, you're kind of coping with things, that could be your mental health saying, help me, I need something. So it impacts everyone and it just looks different for everyone too. It's kind of complicated, but kind of simple, if that makes sense.
Sure. Thank you so much for explaining that. Because especially in this day and age, as in like today, you
Today.
kind of mentioned about how we're all going through what experts are saying as a global trauma, if you will, that's like universal because of what's going on. And so I think that people don't realize, especially if they're unfortunately losing their job or just the mere fact of not being able to go outside, right? Or not being able to live the life that they're just used to living, because as human beings, we are creatures of habit. We do not like change. So right now, we're going through that transition of change of not being able to operate just to be us, whether we were happy or not before this whole pandemic hit us. But I think like you said, a lot of times people just think it's only for those who are depressed or whatnot, or whether you do feel down or something like that, that is mental health. And it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, because I feel like people have the wrong ideas about mental health just being those who are in like mental hospitals or taking prescriptions because of they've been prescribed based on whoever they visited as a clinician. So with that said, let's talk about you real quick as
Okay.
far as mental health advocacy. What is mental health advocacy, and can you walk us through your journey of being a part of the mental health movement, of educating people. I mean, guys, she's gone to high schools. I mean, she's been all over and I love it. She's been on different shows, morning shows, etc., Gayle King and all that. So, but first, talk to us about mental health advocacy, and especially those who are watching this, if they want to be a part of this movement to help those, um, dealing with mental health issues, how to go about doing that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. That's a really great place to start. So, my own personal journey was that I am someone who has experienced loss, and I think a lot of people have experienced loss. So, the things that I say are not, necessarily just specific to me, but I really struggled with my mental health in high school, especially. I lost my grandmother, and she was someone who helped raise me. And I really struggled with racism and otherism. I just didn't fit anywhere. I was just kind of like this awkward kid who is goth but black, and so all the the black kids were like, "What is wrong with you?" And the white kids were like, "What is wrong with you?" And that's just how I saw things. I was just like, "Let me wear all black and love vampires." That was not a mental health issue. That was an expression of art,
Mm-hmm.
but I also felt othered because I just was just different. And when I lost my grandmother, who just would just literally marvel at my choice of combat boots with fishnets. She would just kiss me and all of the eyeliner I had. But when she passed away, um, when you lose someone who you feel like is another parent, it really brought something up about like, I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to stay in the world anymore. So I became suicidal, and then I went to a hospital. And I will tell you, as a young person, as a teenager going to a psych ward, the only thing I learned was how to never go to one again. It was horrifying. It was like being, I've never been in prison, but I mean they strip you down, they search you. It was a very like visceral experience. And so what I ended up doing was saying like, oh, if I tell the truth about how I'm feeling, I get punished. And the treatment was traumatic. And I think as a mental health advocate, I don't know that a lot of people know that a lot of the treatment, when you send someone away to get help, if it's a public system, if it's not really well funded, if people are burnt out, if people don't care anymore, the kind of treatment you can get is abusive. And I have this story which I tell everywhere because I will not stop telling the story to like forever. But I was having some trouble when I was in New York, and I was really stressed out, and I went to get treatment and support because I was like, you know what, I'm thinking about harming myself. I want to prevent it. And what I heard was like, oh my God, you're so high functioning, you're so articulate, and it was like because I could tell my story, I couldn't be having a challenge. And at this very hospital I was in, they were literally showing Silence of the Lambs in the psych ward. I was like, and I asked the nurses, I'm like, is this an appropriate movie choice? Like, and they were like, oh my God, you're so smart. And I'm like, no, this is not what people who are struggling and need support need. They don't actually, this isn't helpful. So, my vision or my mission has been to educate people about what someone who might be suffering experiences, why they are experiencing that, why you shouldn't shame someone or make someone feel guilty for whatever's going on. And it was a lot of pain. And so what, and also sharing what healing looks like for me, what kind of work I needed to do. And that's why, I shared with when Kate Spade died by suicide and Anthony Bourdain died by suicide, I joined a panel with Gayle King to talk about like what are things people don't know about attempt survivors. And one of the things is that like we're a lot of us could appear high functioning or just like nothing's wrong, and that's because there's so much stigma about mental health. And so when you share something, if people react badly or blame you or say get over yourself, it really shuts people down. And so a lot of people wear masks to survive. And so my goal is to really share that like if someone's really expressing their pain, you don't need to convince them that they're not having pain. You can listen. And I don't know that people don't really understand that listening is a super important tool that would be really helpful for anyone, whether you're really struggling or starting to struggle. And as we are collectively experiencing things, um, that is something helpful. I also advocate for peer support. So someone who is like me, who has lived experience, can help someone else who has similar experience. Because I'm not going to judge you if you're like, oh yeah, I had some wild thoughts. I'm like, I probably did too. Because really, the stigma is one of the reasons people don't get access to help, treatment, whatever that looks like for them. I'm not talking about the treatment that I received because that was just not good. And there are really caring people who do really great work. I have amazing therapists who we now are on, a video chats so we can maintain my mental health well-being and during this time, because I still need that support, and I don't have any shame about it. So that's a little bit about me. And I've with the book, I've been going around. I have an amazing co-editor. We're telling stories, and I think storytelling is really important so people understand this impacts everyone, black, white, doesn't matter your gender, race, ethnicity. If mental health impacts everybody, we should all pay attention to it, just like we do our physical health. And especially right now, if you never cared, now is the time to really care because you have so much time. So, yeah, that's a little background.
Oh man, thank you so much for seriously being vulnerable and sharing your story and journey with us. Because I see like someone like you, Kelechi, as someone who's very courageous. Because, like you said, the S word, if you guys are wondering, that documentary, it stands for suicide, and no one wants to hear that. No one wants to talk about it, or let alone just hear it being said. And it's something that will completely change the energy in the room.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, there's so much stigma behind it, and especially in the Black community, all communities especially. But this is just something that we don't talk about. I feel like we talk about it way more than when you and I were growing up. I think if it you and I growing up, it was considered like a foreign language, or kind of like, what? Like,
What?
how
Yeah.
can that even be something that exists, type of thing? I appreciate you for being one of the, what I call, the soldiers out there, literally,
Mm.
who are taking your personal story, like you said, storytelling. And even though we're talking about video here, storytelling is everything: video, personal branding, marketing, business, and especially with you creating this movement, if you will, is a collection of stories. The book that you are a part of, and the documentary. A documentary is just telling the story of whoever the focus or topic that it's covering. So I commend you for that. I applaud you for that, and thank you so much for, giving us insight as to where you came from, your Cinderella story, if you will, and how you've been able to overcome so many different things. So, with that said,
Yeah.
you know, based on what's going on, uh, people don't realize, or people are getting depressed, or they're getting triggered, or they're getting anxious. All of the things, all the different emotions. Maybe one day they're happy. I'll even talk about
Mhm.
myself real quick. One day I'm like, yeah, I'm productive. The next day I'm not.
Yeah.
Um, it's not like I'm losing sleep, but I am losing sleep. And even if I get a good night's sleep, it's just a lot of things. And so, with that said, let's discuss and talk about some apps and or resources. This will be the meat and the potatoes of this
Yeah.
particular discussion. But first things first, let's talk about some video apps that can help those to keep their mental health healthy, or possibly if they're going through something, to get them to a healthier space, if you will, based on your personal experience and all of that. And if you guys are wondering, so I saw Kelechi do a webinar with a nonprofit like 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
yeah, 2 weeks
Time
ago.
means nothing, but
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, 2 weeks ago. And it was focused in California, of course, because California's getting hit pretty hard, and also shout out to those also in New York. You guys are getting it hit pretty hard, and she and I actually lived in New York at the same time at one point. So, she did this amazing presentation to talk about specific apps that could help people in regards to mental health. So as soon as that happened, because I saw she posted it on LinkedIn, I was like, girl, what? I was just so impressed, and so I said, we have to get you on. And seriously, I want you all to pay attention to this. And so, with that said, I'm gonna let you take it over from here, Kelechi, as far as what you would like to share with us, especially from the angle of specific apps or other resources to help us with mental health.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Monique's going to share some of the ones in a little bit but I do want to just kind of like kick things off with saying like every day is a little bit different, and you might need something different every day. So if one day, like like Monique mentioned, you're really productive and you're feeling great and you have a lot of time and you're pumped up, maybe that's the day you clean and you work out. And other days you might feel tired, stressed out. Be mindful about how much news you're watching. I know a lot of people, fear can be addicting, and that's something that we don't talk about a lot. But a lot of the things that we are ingesting with the media is addicting, and it's actually not updates. So if you notice, you're not getting new information, you're just getting the same information packaged differently.
Yeah.
And you're like, let me click on that and let me look at that. And it's almost like when you post something on Instagram and you're just checking your likes and you're like, oh, I got another one and I'm going to refresh. So please stop refreshing on COVID-19 stories. I mean, if I could leave you with anything, get the information you need, maybe make it a little bit smaller. But even my therapist, who is a therapist, was like, um, please don't digest as much news as you're digesting because it can be harmful for your mental health. So I do want to say that if there's one takeaway, hopefully that's that. So you might know about I'm going to talk about some meditation apps. Meditation isn't for everyone, but I have found Calm really helpful. It's really great. I use it in the morning. There are some apps that are meditation and they're for free. Calm is free for 7 days. The Balance meditation app is going to be free for longer. A lot of companies are extending length for that. Headspace is free for special healthcare specialists or frontline workers. But really, if you go online and you're looking for a meditation app, think about what just having that calm moment in the morning or in the evening or whenever it makes sense for you to just breathe. We're digesting a lot of information, so sometimes you need a break. It's also challenging being in the present moment, but trying to take those deep breaths and trying to take those energy is really grounding. And I found that really helpful. Um, the other thing I want to really share with you all is that we're calling this social distancing, and I wish we would stop using that because what it is physical distancing. We should not social distance. We need humans. We're humans. We need to connect with each other. We have to find ways to stay connected. And so, one of the things that I've been using to stay connected with people is Marco Polo. And Monique will show a little bit about that. The reason I use this is because I'm not like a great FaceTimer. Especially when you stop wearing pants, it can get, it's like, I'm not ready. I'm not together. But the great thing about Marco Polo is that you can leave people, and Monique and I Marco Polo a lot. You can leave people messages, and it's been really nice to see people's faces. Monique's going to show us. Leave a like quick video that says, "Hi, how are you?" I ask what people have done today. This is our whole history. Like, I'm liking stuff. I gave up on makeup halfway through. I care today for y'all, but I was like, what does it matter? I'm just going to look into the eyes of someone I care. And it's a really good way to stay connected because I will say connectedness is actually evidence based. For those of you who care about research and evidence, it's evidence based in increasing mental health. So there's Mo. It's super easy. All you do is press the start button, and then you can record a video, and then you can send the video, and then you can watch it whenever you want. So, say she sends me something in the morning, I can watch it later. We can respond, and we go back and forth. They're super short. You can also react with like hearts and smiley faces. And I got to tell you, I've been using that, and that's been getting me through some really tough times. And so, yeah, you'll see all the people that Monique is talking to, and when they're active and when they're not. And you can also create groups, which is really cool. So um, I have a health group because we're trying to do physical health together or just be mindful and careful of physical health. So we have like our physical group where we're like, okay, I weighed in today, or hey, I went on a walk, or I didn't walk at all. I'm eating chocolate and I'm sad and I need to tell you about it. but it's really important to have that outlook and places where you can connect with people on your own time, right? So you can do it whenever you want. Monique, is there anything you want to add about Marco Polo since you've been using it?
Okay, so with Marco Polo, or okay, let's talk about most video apps.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, FaceTime. You know, you gotta physically be there. So if someone's calling you, you have to interrupt your day to answer it and to be there and to be present. The big difference with Marco Polo and all the other video apps is you do it on your time. Whether that's a day, an hour, 5 hours, a whole week, whatever, you don't have to physically be there as someone is sending you a video message. And I think that to me, and you could chime in on this, Kelechi, is
Yeah.
what keeps you sane versus if you're like busy and it's like, this person is calling me again, and more importantly it's on video, I'm not dressed and I don't even look good right now, like I don't want you seeing me like this. I don't have to worry about that. And you know, Kelechi is one of my closest friends, so you know she can see me any type of way. I mean, guys, we talked about, and I'll even be honest, guys, like you see my eyebrows, how they're so uneven
Oh my
right now because I attempted to prune my eyebrows and completely messed them up. Okay. And so I had to talk to Kelechi, and, you know, we've been talking about different things. So,
Yeah, I told Monique if she did her eyebrows too hard, she'd look surprised for 2 weeks. So she gotta like,
so I gotta let this one grow in more to equal this out. Listen, like I need to be able to get my eyebrows waxed, and you know I'm gonna be vulnerable here. I have a unibrow, guys. Like I'm very self conscious about that. But you know, Kelechi, you've known me before the days of waxing, so it is what it is. But yeah, so it's like you know, she and I have been connecting that way, and just even just checking in, if you will. A lot of times I'll just hit her up after I'm done working out, and I'm like all sweaty and stuff. But you know, it is what it is. So I absolutely love this app. I've been sleeping on it. I literally did not get on this until a few weeks after a conference that I spoke at. It seems like years ago, but it was in March, beginning of March, and Marco Polo was there, and I decided to get on it, and I got on it like right when you know COVID was hitting us. So I'm like, oh my goodness, where have I been living all my life with this Marco Polo app? Because it's been out for a while. So yeah.
yes. Yeah, it's definitely not new, and Monique really covered it, but I think it's being able to see people's faces, because these are folks that you might not be able to see for a while. So not, and if we're going to talk about Zoom, but if you kind of want a contained, not live moment, I definitely would really, really suggest this. And I also suggest WhatsApp as well, because you can also leave recorded messages, just recorded video messages, and um, they don't use your cellular network, and so you use the internet, and so that's great if you have Wi-Fi, or you know if you're borrowing your neighbor's Wi-Fi. Just kidding, I'm not doing that. Right. I like my neighbors are like, "What? I didn't know that." But yeah, so again, think about things that you would like to say, just checking in on each other. And again, this is a message for everyone is check on those people who take care of everyone, please. The people who are your strong caretakers. I can ensure the ones who are volunteering to do everything and get families together. I want you to always check on those people because not everyone's great at asking for help, but it's also if it's mutual, then you can check on each other. Do you want to talk about what's the other one we wanted to talk about?
House party. So
House
on your
party.
presentation, you did house party. So that's the one where you guys see the hand icon. So I'm gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
So I've never
So,
used it officially yet, so I don't know if it's gonna help with your explanation. But go ahead, Kaleshi.
yeah, and I'll tell you a little bit about House Party. It's not too different. It is a live app. So it's not like Marco Polo where you leave videos. But the thing I liked about this is I actually helped my friends last year. Oh my gosh, it was last year. With my time is really funny right now, but it's really helpful if your family does not have the same kind of video chat. So if you want to get people together and you are someone who wants to do like a live call and you don't want to use Zoom, you can do instead of FaceTime. If they have an iPhone and you have an Android, you can use House Party to reach anybody across different providers. So what I really like about it is you get to see everyone's face and it's in your phone and you can just talk and walk with it. And it knocks every time someone's in there, and it's just another way to connect with people live. And the cool thing about this, and I really like Zoom, and we'll talk about pros and cons of Zoom, but this doesn't get public to everywhere. And some of the things that are happening with Zoom right now is that because, trolls don't take vacations, they'll come into different Zoom links and just, you know, say some harmful things. So it's a lot more private and secure because you're not sharing out a link to people that can get, spread around. So I like that. So it's almost like group chat live, but like FaceTime, but more people, and you're all kind of like in a house together. And I have found that it's really cool to do games on this. So if you're playing games together, if you can
Oh,
sign in, you can actually do a lot of, think outside the box. Can you do board games? You don't always have to chat because, like, what do we have? Maybe you have a lot to say, but I'm like, day 30, I ate Cheerios. Like, I'm running out of content. So sometimes it's good to just do an activity together and all sign in. And that's really fun to see people's faces. That's the same with Netflix Party.
yeah. Talk about that.
Yeah, I didn't know about Netflix Party. That was new to me. So Netflix Party is a way you can watch TV or watch a Netflix show with your friends online. So you sign in and it gets you all to be watching it at the exact same time. And then you have like a group chat and you can chat like back in the old day. Do you remember group
Yeah.
chats? What up, AOL? Rest in peace. So, but it's kind of cool to interactively watch things with people and say like, I can't believe she's wearing that, or just activities. So like thinking, if you're kind of tired of talking and you want to do something differently, think about playing games. Think about watching TV, watching shows together. Other people are using these types of apps. I have a friend who's doing virtual brunches where everyone cooks, but they have a date, right? So they're not trying to also multitask. They have a specific time where they plan to meet, and everyone's there drinking
Oh,
mimosas
yeah.
and hanging out together. Yeah, or that, and just having a good time. So the other thing is, if you schedule dates with people, like a virtual date, show up as for that time. Don't like also try to clean your house like me. That's kind of rude. So I'm like, oh, don't multitask. Like if it were a date where you're going to meet up with friends, give it the time that it deserves. And all of these things, I've not talked about diagnostic criteria or prescriptions, but this is mental health because it's connectivity. So we don't think about this stuff as mental health, but this is what helps our mental health. So yeah, let's talk about Zoom.
All right, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Okay, we got the Zoom Live going on here. So as you all know, Zoom is a very robust app that can also be accessed on your phone. So it's not just on your desktop. So right now we're just going to show the phone version, if you will. So this is Zoom. Baby
Yay,
boom
it's you.
boom. I want to sing that
All I want
90s
to
song
do
with
is
the boom. Just shake your butt. Yes. Yes.
yeah, we had to do it. It was a requirement.
Mhm.
Um okay, so Zoom is really cool, especially if you're someone who decided to pay for the like 14.99 one a month. Um, right? See, you're advanced, clearly. If you're at like free 99 me, you don't get access to as many people and it's only for 40 minutes. So it will kick you off aggressively
Mhm.
after
Mhm.
40 minutes. I tried to have a Zoom call with my brothers and we were about to get into the meat of a conversation and then it was like, oh, that's 40 minutes. It kicked you right out. So if you have the money to spare, you can get a subscription and you can have like up to 100 viewers. And what's really cool, so what I did last week, yeah, last Friday, was I attended an open mic on Zoom, which was really, really interesting. So the hosts Muted everybody because that's best practices. Mute everyone because there's always that one person who's dog and a thing, and so they muted everybody, and then they called on people to read like 3 minutes of poetry, and it was so dope. It was really great to see people in their houses, really like looking at their faces attentively. I mean, some people were, we all have different Zoom etiquette, so we're learning more about videos. But you don't want to video shame anyone, but just be mindful about what you're doing because people can see you. Because I think sometimes people forget, like you didn't do the audio versions, people can see you,
Mhm.
so that's something to pay attention to as well. But it was really great to hear poetry, to hear the hosts make some jokes. You really felt like you were with a collection of people. They also had a plan for I think they're called like Zoom bombers or something. So these are people who get into a Zoom room. Yeah, I've never heard of this at all, but there are people who get into a Zoom room, a link that's public, and just start saying a whole bunch of stuff and just being problematic. So they find a way to like mute the people and do that kind of work. So Zoom has pros and cons, but if you're like a smaller group where people don't know all your links, you can do virtual dates. You could also virtually date. So I am hearing of people who are like, you know, hey, quarantine and chill by ourselves by virtually dating. So they're still dating and they're using apps like Zoom to have an actual date and talk to each other and get to know one another. And so, I mean, again, anything you can use to stay connected with people can be helpful. I'm doing a weekly family Zoom on Sundays. We just realized, I was like, oh my gosh, Sunday is Easter? I couldn't, like, what is time right now? Yeah, so we're going to have a Sunday Easter Zoom, which I'm sure will be interesting. But just to, have something that you look forward to. I think that's the big thing. It's like, do you plan something you look forward to that is exciting to you, that can keep you connected with people? And of course, you can use Zoom professionally, as most people have been doing, to, connect in office meetings. So again, there's like maybe overutilization of Zoom, but know that you can use it for fun. And that's also really important for your mental health. Is like, what brings you joy?
Mhm.
Also, if you need to disconnect from things and people and you need to like go color, read, do something, something that we should all be mindful of is the more that you look at screens, the more tired you are. So if you're noticing that your eyes are tired and you're tired, if you've been in meetings all day looking at screens, it is something that you should pay attention to because like your physical health is important too. Speaking of which, we shouldn't forget your physical health. So there's lots of other apps that are more geared at your physical health, and a lot of different people like Beachbody. There's like My Fitness Tracker. There's things for like there's so many apps out there for your body. Like there's just a lot, and I will say it can get a little controversial in the world about like how much exercise should we be doing. But for some people, if that was part of your regular routine, it keeps you sane, that's important. Physical health is really important to your mental health. And at the same time, we shouldn't shame anyone because they didn't do 100 crunches because we're dealing with something we've never dealt with. So, like, hold both of those truths in your hand of like, okay, I got up today and I took a shower. I put on pants. Okay, I'm not putting on pants until this is all over. I'm just going to tell you the truth. But like, I did some crunches this morning and I put a little gold star on my calendar and I was like, I did crunches. And
I did some
that's good
crunches
enough
this
for
morning,
me.
and I
So
put a
I
little
think
gold star on my
I think
calendar,
you
and I
need
was
to
like, I
think
did
about your
crunches.
mental health
And
and all
I
of
did some
this.
crunches this morning, and
Doing
I
anything too
put a
much
little
can be
gold
a
star
little
on my
too much.
calendar, and I was like, I
So,
did crunches. And I did
what
some
does that
crunches.
look like? What are the breaks you need? Can you go outside and get some sun in a safe place, right? What are the things that you need to take care of? And also, staying connected with people is really important. So, don't forget about the loved ones and the people who maybe they're not on FaceTime or they're not really, you could also call people. I know it's so low tech. It is the lowest form of tech ever. You could call people and have a conversation because you have time to. So, you know, I just want to share that. I think that we're going to look at this later and this is going to be in all the history books. And, I think about what you did during this time to help yourself. And for those who have more to give, what did you do to help other people? If you feel like you have time to give or resources you want to support, there are crisis lines, there are support lines that you can be someone on the other line for someone really struggling if you have more. And if you're someone who needs more, don't hesitate to reach out for more of those things. And I'm happy to send Monique some of the links and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
because I was
yeah.
gonna ask you, is that something that's, I hate to say it like this, Googleable? like in your specific state, or is it a national hotline? Like, how does it work?
Well, there is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline,
Mm-hmm.
which since I talked about suicide, I always like bring that up. And that hotline number is 1-800-273-8255. That's just a good hotline. Not even if you're not someone who's currently struggling with a mental health issue or even suicide, if you know someone who is, they actually talk to people who are friends of someone or a family. And I don't know that a lot of people know that as a resource. So if you're struggling, if a lot of things get really kind of out of hand and you're struggling, that is definitely a resource that I would say you can use. I will say that sometimes these things can be a little restrictive, so just be careful. But what I mean by that is that you know especially in Black and brown communities and in definitely queer communities, there's forced treatment, which means like someone will have to call police on you for a crisis check. And that typically is an unpleasant situation. But I just want to say that there's sometimes restrictive responses when someone's really struggling, just to be totally transparent about that. But also, if you're really struggling and you need support, that is definitely a resource you can use. There's also the crisis text line, which I'm trying to pull up. As well, because not everyone likes to chat on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And the crisis text line, it's available 24/7 in UK, Canada, and all you have to do is text home to 741-741. So it's pretty easy. 741-741, and you can start talking to someone. And a lot of these things you can Google. I would also recommend, if you're someone who likes looking at videos, check out eachmindmatters.com. They have a lot of videos of people who might be struggling with mental health issues or have their own story. They have lots of a gallery of things. They have stuff for young people too. And like, let's remember that everyone's struggling. Like, I know young people who had their prom canceled, their graduation canceled. My brother just had to postpone his wedding. So like, it's okay to grieve that we lost a lot of things, even though we're also losing humans. I think there's this judgment of, oh, well, I'm still living, so I shouldn't complain
Mm-hmm.
or about anything going on. But I'm like, if it's impacting you, it's not really a complaint, it's your experience. So like, be careful of that. Like, you get on social media, well, at least you had this and you're not struggling like this person. Like, everyone is dealing with this the best we can. And we can all need a little love and some empathy. So hopefully that's helpful.
No, most definitely. And thank you for sharing that. And it also brought to my attention, if you don't mind us kind of focusing on, is, the mental health in the workplace. So most places are virtual right now.
Mhm.
If anything, there's a lot of enterprise level type of applications that allow employees to be in touch with their employer. Like there's Microsoft Teams and all,
Mhm.
some higher level type of thing. So it's like, you're working from home now, and you're having to do these virtual meetings all the time, like you said,
Yeah.
staring at the screen and all that. And then it's like, and also dealing with being at home with your family, or maybe you're by yourself, or you have a roommate or a significant other, whatever, whatever. And it's like, based on your personal experience, or just maybe some suggestions, rather, because it's one thing, it's like, it's just like, if you go to a job, especially to a place that you do not like, and you
Mm.
have to come home. And then if you have a family, you got to deal with the wife or the husband or the kids, if you have any, or the dog or the cat, whatever. And it's like, you want to also have a balance there. And the apps that we covered thus far, video apps, allows you to stay in touch. But like you said, you're staring at a screen all day, and let alone you're meeting with people that you might not necessarily like, and it's like having that balance. And I think you're one of those people who are really good, which I've actually personally experienced. I'm not going to share that story because it's a personal story for you, but where you're good at executing boundaries or setting boundaries. So
Yeah.
do you have any suggestions on that?
Yeah. So this is a really good question to ask, because we're being asked, those of us who are in those 9 to 5 places, to do something that we have not all collectively done. And even folks so in my prior job, I used to remote from home. And so I was used to being on phone calls all the time. And while everyone else was in the office, and maybe I was one of other people, but they all had that connection in the office. And then now you move everybody else to a remote environment. There's some things that one should be mindful of. So one thing that they're finding in study is that people nowadays are working longer because they're home. And that's something that is, I'm going to use all I statements in my expertise, is that like, no, it's not like you're like, oh, it's just a different work day. It's like a global pandemic. You have to take care of stuff. You need breaks. You need to like take a lunch break. So what I do with my partner, who we're quarantining together, James, is that most days when we're good about it, look at Monique saying hi, James. We try to take a lunch break. We're like, okay, at this time, we're going to take a break. We're going to sit with each other. We're going to turn everything off and we're going to be with each other. I think people think that you can be more productive and they might ask for some things. And I think it's like, can you draw a boundary? Can you block off time on your calendar? That's for you. And what I mean by that, and when are you going to start your day and when are you going to end your day? Because when you're in your house, it gets a little confusing about when you're going to start and when you're going to end. And that's why a lot of people don't end. So, my recommendations, and it really depends on where you live. So take this with a grain of salt, is that you have a designated area that you work. And then when you are done, you turn everything off and you put it away so that you can go out of it, because you do not want to, it's a harsh word, contaminate your entire house with work. You do not want to do that, because if you do everything in your bedroom, that means it's really hard to sleep and you'll still be thinking about work. I mean, you might be sleeping about work as much as you can, but it's almost like separating, like, we eat in this room, we work in this room, we watch TV in this room. You don't want to have that pour out into all of your home. You just don't. That's one thing that I would just caution against, as someone who is remoting and did that, and then it was not successful. um, that's one thing. The other thing is, we're learning a lot of things about working with one another, because, and it can kind of be a little informal, like, oh, we're on chats together. We never needed to chat this much. So we're talking all the time. And so you're getting pinged, and it's almost like being in a group chat. I got to tell you, I cannot stand group chats. How productive are you when you pause every time? It's like getting a text message from hell. Like, you can't get out of it because someone's like, oh, I liked that, or I pinged that. Can you mute things? Can you tell people, hey, I'm off for this period of time, or I'll get back to you? But constant access to someone is actually not good for your mental health, your productivity, or that's probably why people are working later, because they're done chatting all day. I've already been in a meeting. Guys, don't even get me started on meetings that should have been emails. Like, we are all seeing all the meetings that could have been emails, but now you're doing these like longer Zoom calls. I really think can it get accomplished in 20 minutes? Does it need to be a Zoom call? Do we actually need to have a meeting every day? Is that productive? So if you're a leader of an organization and you have a structure where you're constantly meeting with everyone and people are in meetings all day, just know that when they're in meetings, they can't work. So you do need that time to disconnect from people to do things like write. Or, I mean, it's the same thing with Slack. Like, anything that you're constantly connecting with someone or doing content, it pulls you away from what you're trying to do. If you have a question, great. Maybe, oh, I have a question. Let me answer all these questions. I used to schedule time where I would send emails. I'm like, I'm going to send emails from 1 to 2. I'm going to work on this other thing from here, and I'm not available. If you need me, you're going to have to call me or something, or schedule something, because you have to actually schedule time to do your work instead of staying connected. And I feel for the people who are parents, who suddenly are now parents and teachers and expected to work a 9 to 5. Let's be clear, that is an unrealistic expectation. I do not have kids at all. I've been around a kid for an hour and I couldn't get anything done. So I kudos to you for like maintaining a full-time job. And I think I had a friend who said, like, she has a new, her kid is 1 year old. And they had to take him out of course, they had to take him out of daycare to have him start, be home, because they all had to be home together. And she had to tell her boss, she's like, look, I'm gonna do 5-hour days of work for you, because there's no other way. And we're gonna have to talk about this. And her boss kept trying to do more and more until her boss had to take her kids out of daycare and have them at home and was like, oh, shoot, this was unrealistic. We cannot expect you to work an 8-hour day and then also take care of your kids. So, I mean, I know I'm in California, we process and feel things, and people can be like really hard in other places. We're little softies over here, but I do think of like what's actually learn what your expectations are, what you can actually accomplish when things are quieter, when maybe said children are sleeping and you can get something done, and when should your day end? Because you have to have an end to your day, or this isn't. It's almost like the news cycle. It just doesn't end. You have to end your day and do something nice for yourself. Maybe take a break, maybe walk outside, but break from when you stop working and when you start having family time. And that was a lot of stuff, but I'm glad you asked that question.
No, I'm glad you answered it, girl. I feel like you could do a whole mini masterclass on this alone.
And it's not a
Seriously.
thing.
Oh my
Focus
goodness.
it.
I'm serious. I feel like this is a whole mini masterclass you could give alone. But like I said, I've had the pleasure to visit you a couple of times and, experience. So I just love how you operate. I mean, I was like, man, if I had a job right now, I want to be like Kelechi. I want Kelechi in my life because, a lot of jobs today, and I feel even based on what we're going through right now, a lot of people are going to realize that the remote thing does work. They might start demanding it, let alone might not even transition back depending on what industry or whatever that, you're in. And so I think it's imperative that you have that. And then, being in the entrepreneurial space, it's like we have more control over our days, if you will. We do, especially when we're just starting, we do get caught up of working all the time.
Yeah.
Or I will say lately, and you brought it to my reminder, so I'm like, okay, I can't do that anymore. I've been working out of my bed. And it's only because I work so much I do have a designated area, but the thing about, I guess you could say, entrepreneurs is, and that's why like the Starbucks and the coffee shops exist, is being able to change up the work environment. And when you're home, it's like even harder to make that happen. So sometimes, to me, changing that up is going to my bedroom. But you're right, it affects my sleep cycle and all that other stuff because, the correlation, I guess, that's going on subconsciously between working there and then that's my area of where I need to sleep and rest. So I thank you for sharing that, and that's a big reminder. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure something else out just in case I start getting sick of being just in the home office area. And that in itself creates anxiety. I mean, there's so many things that are going on right now that's contributing to so many emotional things, mental health things, et cetera, et cetera. A good friend of mine, Lisa Nicole Bell, she put on Instagram, I think yesterday, she was like, before I used to work out for vanity reasons, now I do it just to stay sane. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm more so that right now. Like, I just needed to feel somewhat, especially if I feel like I wake up off, I go work out to get the energy up. And then I'm like, all right, I can go.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Ready. So for me, it's just been a therapy session for me primarily, especially right now. So, yeah.
No, I'm glad you're doing that. And like to your point about working in the bedroom, it's something we call sleep hygiene. So it's really important for sleep hygiene
I
not to
like
have
that,
those.
by the way. Sleep hygiene?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
you don't have to do any of this, but like for people to sleep well. Okay, so sleep controls so much, your mood, how much you're going to be productive. Like a lot of mental health is really attached to where how much you're sleeping. So that's why we say don't contaminate your sleep area, because screens, it's really hard to sleep after having screens in your face all day. So you want to separate screens out of the room that you're going to sleep in. You want to, so that your body, when it goes into the room, it remembers like, oh, this is the room I sleep in. You don't want to train your body to say, this is the room I do work in, because then when you're trying to sleep, it's still like, what? And that's the same thing with phones. So I'm not always successful at this, but I try to like not have it's the screens. It's actually the blue screens that keep you up.
Yeah.
And as soon as you look at that, it's like, oh shoot, I gotta like, oh, there's another email. I'm like, do I need to email someone at 10 p.m.? Is anyone reading this? I mean, no, probably not. And so trying to keep those screens out until you're ready to be awake. And it's something I struggle with and I'm working on, but like, it's like, take your own advice. So it's something we can all do a better job at. And I'm so glad that like physical health is lifting your spirits. And it's not just like, to your point, you're like, hey, what's keeping me sane? Great. What's lifting your spirits is something I want everyone to think about and work on. It's like, not like, okay, I'm maintaining. So the things you're talking about is like, this is what I have to do every day to be Monique. What puts me also in a better mood? What brings me like joy? Because we need joy. We're here. Like, what are we going to do? Wait to be joyful? I can't wait until May 3rd or September 5th or whenever this is, I can't. I have to find joy in my everyday. So what does that look like? And for me, it's like coloring curse words. I don't know. It's what I like. We're all different.
Love it. Oh, I knew that was one of those questions where I'm like, I'm gonna keep it in my back pocket because I just wanted to get your true, authentic self come out, and you nailed it. In fact, let me do this. I've been kind of slipping here, but shots fired with that one and that explanation. So, wow, we covered a lot. To me, I feel like this is the most we've covered out of all the episodes that we had this week for this mini virtual summit that I'm hosting. And again, this is a very special one. I had another good friend of mine, Alice, come on yesterday, and I said, guys, today as in yesterday and today as in right now, I said this is going to be the most unique angle of things when it comes to my world of being an entrepreneur and utilizing video for your business and also your personal self. And so I was like, Kelechi, let's bring you in and let's talk about number one, mental health, specific apps that happen to be video apps, and also Kelechi shared resources, also meditation apps. Are there any sort of apps that come to mind that you haven't covered before we kind of wrap everything up here that you can think of? And take your time, no rush.
Yeah, there's a lot of other apps, and let me see a good one. There's Okay, since we were talking a lot about sleep, there's this one called Dream Easy. And it's really supposed to help, like, if you're someone who is not sleeping well and having like nightmares or just challenges, it helps you rewrite them and work on them. The same thing is with like imagery rehearsal therapy. So that's also supposed to like, really help people sleep and have like less bad dreams. Because again, sleep is really, 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 really important. There's one app that I want to bring up that I think does a lot, and we should, everyone should do what makes sense for them. It's called WRAP. So WRAP is the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. Sounds really like, whoa, but really WRAP is something you can do if it can be like, what are those early warning signs when things are about to like not go so well? And it helps you track certain things. So if you're someone who generally is, pretty much in a good mood, but you start, I don't know, maybe you had too many conversations and Microsoft Teams chat and people want too many things, you start getting a little like agitated. It has you track things that you like when you might get triggered or something. It has you track those things and also plan like, okay, if I start to see this, what do I need to do? If I start to see that I'm getting agitated or I'm getting short with people, I might need to get up. I need to take a walk. I might need to do some crunches. I might need to just sit. I might need to meditate. But essentially, it's really important to always keep your mental health in mind. So I would really recommend the WRAP app because it's basically like mental health planning so you don't come to a crisis. And anyone can do it. Even if you're not like super into mental health, people should always take stock in like what starts irritating them when you're off. Like Monique, you already mentioned it. You're like, when I'm off, I know I need to start exercising because I didn't sleep well, so I need to start exercising. So that would be in your WRAP plan. Like, oh, I was off today. I'm going to need to exercise, and that's what's going to be in my WRAP plan. So I think that's something that could be a useful tool as well. And I mean, think of those like coloring apps that you can press and like other things like that that are silly and fun. They're not super like mental health, but they bring about joy and, explore those things. And most people use an app for like a day, a week, a two, or whenever you need it. There's no pressure to use it all the time. If you stop using it or stop needing it, that's great. But just to know that this is kind of like something for your toolbox.
I love it. Oh my goodness. Actually, yeah, I actually want to check that out as soon as like we wrap things up. Get it? Okay, I'm gonna stop being cheesy.
Never. You're never going to stop being cheesy.
But yeah, with that said, guys, I hope that this was something that was beneficial to you, whether you think about mental health or not. Hopefully, it allows you to see mental health in a different light. And, as Kelechi's mentioned, she's not a physician of any sort, but I figured she's still an expert in my eyes. Mental health wasn't something we talked about growing up, and she and I grew up together starting from high school. And in addition, because of her story and her journey as an advocate, being a part of a documentary, they did like a whole tour. So at one point she came to Atlanta. I made sure to go see it. We had like a whole watch party there in person, and then there was a whole opportunity for interviews and stuff. So I saw her when she did that. In addition to the book that she co-wrote with someone else, I love what you're doing, Kelechi. I definitely see you in such. I always saw you in a highlight, just saying that.
Oh.
But, just what you're doing and just being fearless about it and open and vulnerable and being totally okay, I think is amazing. And by you sharing your story with us, if you guys are joining late, be sure to watch the beginning and actually the whole thing. We went over various apps and just different things, but I feel like, it's one thing to study something and then, or to experience it and then being able to relate to people and have people kind of see things in a different light because you're just sharing your story and just being true and authentic to yourself. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here. And, if people want to continue to see what you're doing, or maybe they want to hit you up, Kelechi, based on watching this, because I'm a plaster this all over the place, even though I already have already, but after the fact, like, what's the best way people can find you online and or possibly contact you?
Yeah, I have a website, so we can put that up, and you can just press contact me and it goes right to me. It's not like I have an assistant.
So what's the website URL?
It's my Kelechi Ubozoh at WordPress. So
Okay.
I know I got the domain. I just haven't done anything with that yet. So
Sure.
I can't send people there. So it's KelechiUbozoh.wordpress.com
Okay.
until I officially do the whole official Kelechi Ubozoh.
Awesome. Okay, so go there, Kelechi Ubozoh. You should see her name on the screen, guys, if you don't know how to spell her name. And of course, it's everywhere. So I'll be sure to put it in the links in the comments and description, guys. Be sure to reach out to her. I will say she's one of my favorite people on this planet because she is so not judgmental whatsoever. Like, I could say the most randomest thing to her, and she's like, okay. So I love her for that. And other than that, guys, I hope you guys are staying safe and take action on some of this stuff. If you feel like, you're feeling some type of way, or even if you want to help those who, someone is hurting and stuff like that, I would love it if you guys could share this with family, friends, the world, wherever you are. And like I said, this is the second to last day. Tomorrow we end with a bang with two amazing guests. We got Brent Leary and Katrina Nicole. Brent will be talking about using video with a customer relationship management tool, aka CRM. And then Katrina is going to talk about using video to drive and build Facebook groups, Facebook communities, in which, in a way, Kelechi, I guess you could utilize that too, Facebook groups to surround yourself with people that you want to keep in contact, especially during this time. But other than that, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed today. I hope to see you tomorrow. We kick off at 10 a.m. Eastern, and then the last one will be at 2 p.m. Eastern. Any final thoughts, Kelechi, before we sign off?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. It was a blast. I had so much fun. I love all the energy, and just out to everyone who's out there is like, we keep saying stay safe, but I want to say, like, stay hopeful, and keep that joy and energy. That stuff will get you through a lot. It's not just endurance. It's what are the joys in the everyday moment. So keep that going, guys.
I love it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.